Hello everyone. Sorry I can't see everyone behind the pylons, but we'll make do, trying not to stay in the way of this screen. So my topic is Larp Research 101, and I was asked to sort of give a brief introduction to the sort of, well, not mandatory reading list on the topic, but the sort of interesting basic texts you can look into. And there will be quite many, so do not let this list intimidate you in any way. Personally, I could pick just one and say, read this and you will understand a lot. I won't tell you which one it is. And it wasn't written by Eric Fartland in 1997. Yeah. So, as an overview of what I'm going to be doing today is that this is going to be my viewpoint on what is the sort of essential reading, or which are the texts that reflect either the community's concepts of what is within a significant concept of live-action role-playing theory, or what is something that had a key influence on the field. The book covers are just sort of here for you to see and possibly to remember. They will have no direct correlation with the slide in question, unless accidentally. Except I want to mention this one, which is the Foundation Stone of Nordic Larp, published 2 years ago, which is another team's viewpoint on which the most important Nordic texts are. I strongly disagree with their choice. And have an edited volume also, which has some, but sort of this points out that what we want to emphasize somewhere isn't necessarily always the same thing that others think are the key contributions. So this is a subjective list, just like they all are. My key points here are that we can define central theoretical frameworks into 3 key groups. First of them is design theory, which according to many is what really lies under the Nordic tradition of role-playing theory. A lot of it is design-based material. Then we have stuff that deals with issues of play, including things like immersion, play experiences, interaction, that kind of thing. And then there is what I call theory, which is hypotheses about play and meta-theory works and so forth. So stuff created simply to explain that with which we work. Please, by the way, interrupt me at any time if you have questions. Yes?
Are all these references going to be available online, or do I need to write them down if I want to read them later?
You won't need to write them down. These slides will be made available.
And the papers in the conference proceeding has the full bibliography.
Yes, it's almost the same as the one here. Why this one will be especially made available will be shown later on as these things progress. And the reason why is because I've just, due to the space, listed them like this, and I'm going to explain basically what it's about. So the first manifestations we had of serious Larp design theory were, in my opinion, the manifestos. Sort of stuff where individual designers or designer groups codified their own viewpoints, usually by saying things like, okay, this is mandatorily the only best way to do Larp. To design it, to play it the right way. So we have Turku, which emphasizes immersion very strongly and introduced the idea of the Finnish immersion closet, where you sit alone, imagining you are your character, and that counts as a Larp. And then Dogma, which followed this movie design dogma, the 95, and wanted to sort of emphasize a pure form with no secrets and so forth. And then we had others like Meilahti, which was sort of focusing on storytelling more than the other aspects. These are important in also the way that these are the roots from which many of the design principles come from. For example, the roots of the freeform and G-form tradition in the Nordic countries. Many of the key people were also in the Dogma group, so you can see initial steps there. Then we have structural theory material. For example, Emma Wieslander's work on positive power drama, how you want to do empowering games instead of just something that is focused on conflict and so forth. And 2 very central texts by Eirik Fartland, which discuss the way in which we can at least partially control the way in which stories and experiences unfold. These deal with things like incentives for character actions and then fate webs, sort of how you weave the game structure in a manner that people are able to sort of get the experiences that they want and that they build sort of a web. Then on the environmental side, there are 2 basically documentary pieces. Actually, this year is wrong. I think that was written in 2007. 2 papers by Jock, who's sitting over there, which deal with Hamlet and then Dragonbane, and the way in which these games did their best to create this kind of total illusion of the fictional reality. These are about the 360-degree illusion in many ways. And then Andy Nordgren's excellent text on the design of a Larp called Totem, which was about a primitive society and how they used a combination of realistic surroundings and then certain meta techniques in order to create something that would be a very strong immersive experience for players. Then the 4th design category. Here we have stuff that deal directly with the design of experiences instead of just stories. Tobias Brigstad's The Nuts and Bolts of G-Form is one central text, not simply because it tells you how this one tradition of freeform LARP mixture games were created, but also because it lists a lot of the meta techniques that we have seen in more experimental LARPs later on, so I strongly recommend a look at it from the design perspective. Then 2 other interesting pieces, if not totally influential, are first of all Markus Montola wrote in The Positive Negative Experience of Extreme Role-Playing, which is one of the central texts for Bleed and how design can be used to intentionally affect the player through the character and vice versa. He describes a couple of very nasty games designed to basically make their players feel really, really bad about themselves and their capability of doing certain decisions, even as characters. And as a counterpoint to that, Stephanie Pegg's nice little text from 5 years ago, which is about domestic realism in LARPs. How do you make games about everyday life, for example, interesting? How to do something without having to go into conflict. The next stuff we have in the field is sort of play theory. First of all, there is a strong tradition of interaction-related research. And I don't think there is any single text that is really sort of central in this field. It's a topic that keeps popping up. Morten Gade wrote about it as interaction as being the key element of all LARP in 2003, something that is in direct opposition, for example, to the idea of the immersion closet where you role play alone. And the others here deal with issues on how much you have to sort of convey directly to the other people through, for example, your appearance, gestures, so forth, and how much we have to sort of give players the illusion of something being instantly recognizable. David Happe, for instance, talks of short elves as seen as problematic by other players, which is of course again an ableist position, but on the other hand deals with issues of fidelity. Then we have player typologies. There's John Kim's original model of 3 player types, which has been hugely influential, not just for LARP theory, but also, for example, the Forge community of tabletop and so forth. So a lot of models on player interests, in this case sort of conflict narrative or simulation is coming from these groups. Then we have interesting stuff from other communities that have been more and more recently sort of significant. Like Glory 6 analysis of bullying simulation breaking down because it goes too close to the player in question. And then certain player typologies and stuff that deals with things like triggering and those. And then a few description and theory pieces on how experiences can be constructed. I especially recommend Ulrich Lekov's My Name is Jimbo the Orc, which is about a guy fixated with his character and the way in which we construct stories of play after it ends. Another really nice is Eric Winter-Paisley's text in this year's Knutpunkt book, Playing the Game Away, I think it's called, about his experiences as a queer player and his character roles, distanciation. Then we have theory. For example, Mike Pohjola's text on autonomous identities, which is both interaction and immersion and character-player relationship. Koffa Sandberg wrote on first-person audiences to play, sort of to whom are we actually playing. And Matthijs Holter's critique of immersion, where he says that we shouldn't talk about it at all because it actually doesn't exist or we don't know what it means. Historical definitions of the area, and finally metatexts that analyze existing works, for example, our critique of or analysis of immersion again, and Sarah's function material, Markus Montola's dissertation, which is on social constructionism and games. And then we have extra fields of theory, which I didn't list, educational stuff, things that come from totally outside of this community, studies of the first text that analyzes why the Danish boarding school has been so successful in Islam-based pedagogy, work on schools. Then some really interesting case studies. I highly recommend Snow's analysis of role-play-based education at the Plymouth Plantation, which is not, it doesn't mention Larp, but it's obviously about that. Player development, and finally a couple of really recent texts which sort of summarize a lot of this. Rafael Vienna's dissertation, which was accepted a few weeks ago, is a really good summary on this stuff. And in conclusion, even the core has a lot to read. I couldn't do it in 15 minutes to list even those. So it's usually best to focus on just the facet that interests you and then look broader into the others. And a lot of this stuff carries ideological factors within it, simply because the player community, the theoretical framework, the disciplinary background of the person in question, these are all present in there. And here is the list of references that was just actually mentioned a moment ago. Thank you.